Yesterday we focused on customary units of measure, but today we're changing that and we're going to focus on metric units. Now, in the United States, most of the time we use customary units in our country, but there are times in different circumstances that we may use metric. Now, let's think about this. Does anybody have a man in their family that maybe says, you hear them say, hey, I need a 1/4 inch ratchet, or I need a 3/8 inch screwdriver. No, it wouldn't be screwdriver. You can tell I'm a girl. 3/8 inch, what do you call it? Wrench. Yeah. Well, we do. We do need to know that stuff. We do need to know that stuff. Okay, so metric units are comparable, but they're comparable yet not exactly the same. So the words we need to know today are up here, and they all have one thing in common. The word meter. Thank you, Erin. So what units do we use to measure length in the metric system? Today, that's what we're going to focus on. We're going to measure how long something is. So that's our question. Measurements in the metric system are based on the meter. We can think of these basic metric units today: the millimeter, the centimeter, the meter, and the kilometer. So let's talk about each of these. What do all the abbreviations have in common? They all have M's. Today, it's okay with me if you use their abbreviations. You don't have to write out the whole word. So 1 millimeter, about the thickness of a dime, just like this, about the thickness of a dime. 10 of them would equal a centimeter. Now I want you to grab the ruler that I laid on your table, and I want you to make sure, Emma, that you're not looking at inches. Do you see the tiny little lines? They're so small that sometimes they look like they're on top of each other. Those are called millimeters. How many of them would make up 1 centimeter? 10. How many of them would make up 4 centimeters?
40.
How many of them would make up 9 centimeters? How many of them would make up 12 centimeters?
120.
There you go. All right, now let's talk about what would be some things that we might measure in millimeters in the real world. Look around our room. Think about your house. What are some things other than the width of a dime that we might measure in millimeters? Darius? The width of his fingernail. That is a wonderful example. Aiden? I'll call on you when you have an answer. Kaden? Pencil lead. The width of pencil lead. Yeah.
The width of this pencil.
Okay, the thickness of a pencil itself. Alexis? An ant. Oh yeah, there you go. Erin? The width of paper. Not the length of it, but the width or thickness of it, right? Last example, Will? I think that we might measure those in centimeters. Look how little these guys are. I don't think that we would measure those in millimeters. I think we'd probably measure those dice in centimeters. Okay, so moving on. A paper clip. How wide a paper clip is about 1 centimeter. Look at your ruler. Put your pinky between the 0 and the 1 centimeter. I bet that your pinky is about as wide as 1 centimeter. Am I right? Okay, so let's think of some other things, either in this room or in your house, in the world, that would be about 1 centimeter, or that we could measure in centimeters. Aiden?
How tall a piece of paper is?
Okay, yeah, sure. How tall a piece of paper is, or how long it is. Darius? The length of an iPad. Let's be specific. The thickness of an iPad. Okay, yes. Will? The dice. Okay, we're coming back to that example. The dice. The width across the dice, the face of the dice. Emma? A pencil eraser would maybe be measured in centimeters. And finally, our last example, the thickness of your table. Use your ruler. See. About how many centimeters thick is that? About 3? Okay. All right. So how many centimeters is the ruler that I gave you? 15. Yeah. We can measure things that are longer than this ruler. Like, for example, my shoe. This would be longer than the ruler, but I would still use centimeters to measure it. We're going to move on to meters. And here is a meter stick. Okay? It is made of 100, Alexis, 100 little centimeters makes up a meter. 1 meter right here. Think of something that's about 1 meter. The width of a house door is their example. Can you think of anything else, Darius?
The barrel of some guns.
Okay. Weapons, possibly. Emma? A window. The length of a window. We want to use specific vocabulary that's going to help us. Brendan? The length of my smartboard would be about 1 meter. Kaden? The length of the flagpole. Good. And finally, America. The length of the whiteboard. Very good. So some things are longer than 1 meter, right? But we'd still use meters, the unit meters, to measure them. Okay, quick announcements. Okay, we just mentioned how meters, when we measure with meters, it can be more than just 1 meter. How about the distance from this room to the office? Would we measure that in meters? Sure we could. Sure we could. How about the distance from me to my van? Sure we could. Yeah, absolutely. How about the distance from McDonald's to Casey's? Yeah. No. No. Because moving on, that's okay. Casey's, well, the one right across I meant. Okay. So moving on. Now, a kilometer is 1,000 of these. So now you know when I say the distance between me and the office or me and my minivan wouldn't be 1,000 of these. It might be 50 of them, but not 1,000, right? So an example they're giving is 1 kilometer is about as long as 4 city blocks. That doesn't mean across the street. It means from one end of the street to the other. So that's 1 kilometer. Now, some people mentioned in my class that road races in the summertime are often called 5Ks or 10Ks. Well, when we compare that to miles, it's similar but not exact. For example, a 5K run is a little over 3 miles. Okay? Did you have a question?
So would that be about 1 mile?
No. No, it wouldn't be. I mean, you can compare it to that, but it's not the same as that. All right, what would be some things? Why don't you set your rulers down so we don't have to? Can you do that, Will, instead of acting like you're acting? Alexis, you too, maybe? What would be some distances that we might measure in kilometers? Emma? From here to Sioux Falls, measured in kilometers. Aiden?
From here to my grandpa and grandma's.
Definitely. America? From here to Laverne. Let's not use Pipestone for our next examples. From Seattle to Puget Sound would be measured in kilometers. Brendan? Duluth to Minneapolis. All great examples. Okay, now I want us to take a quick look here. Because oftentimes going from, well, you know what? I'm going to back up. I'm going to back up, back up, back up. And we're going to take a look at a few examples here. What would be the most appropriate unit of measure if we were measuring the length of your kitchen? Those are your 4 choices. What would you use to measure how long your kitchen is? Kaden? Meters. That's right. It's going to be more than one of these, isn't it? Sure. How about if you came up here right now, which of those units would you probably measure this with? A centimeter or a millimeter? Will? Totally. However, let's take a look at the difference between measuring with centimeters and measuring with millimeters. So I have a centimeter ruler on my smartboard. And this first line, this one right here, whoops. Line A is a little more than 2 centimeters. How many millimeters is that? How many?
33.
Raise your hand. What do you think, Dathan? See, it's a little more than the 2, but it's less than the 3. I like that. We're estimating. So about 23 millimeters. How about line B? How many millimeters would B represent? Cole? 46 millimeters. That's the same thing as 4.6 centimeters. Right? How about the next one? C. Sorry, I put it right smack over the top of a number. Emma? 66. Well, here's 60. And here's 80. This must be 71 millimeters. I like that. I like that. And now, again, these aren't exact, but they're an estimate, so pretty close. How about D? Ooh, make it a little harder, huh? Alan? Say it again. This is 10, and this is right on 11. So what would that be? Brendan, can I have your eyes up here, please? Ellen, one more time so I can hear you. 110, oops, millimeters. 110 of them. How about the very last one, letter E? This is tricky. Aaronell? This is 140 right here. Oops.
That's crazy.
It's like it hides it from me. Sorry about that. This is 140. This is 150. No, this is right next to the whole number. This is your 140. So what do you think it is? 146. I'd say that's a good estimate. 146. About halfway between, but a little bit more. Okay. Are you guys ready to get started on your assignment today?